A few weeks ago now, in our last episode, we discussed the MP-18, the submachine gun given to the Stormtroopers, the elite forces of the German army, and it was used in their spring offensive in 1918. This week we're looking at a weapon that came all the way across the Atlantic Ocean in the hands of many soldiers of the American Expeditionary Force. Today on Battlefield 1 Weapon History, we're taking a look at the Browning automatic rifle. So before we get into the history then, let's see what DICE have done here with the weapon in Battlefield 1. The B.A.R is one of the last weapons to be unlocked in the support class, depending on which variant you look at, coming in as rank 2 for the trench variant and unlocked at rank 3 for the storm and telescopic variants. It's one of the lighter machine guns that you can pick in the support class, and it offers a small magazine size as a trade-off for being a little bit more lightweight and a little bit more maneuverable, what you might expect more as an assault rifle. But really, the B.A.R directly fits that role. I'd say its main competitor is the Masson. Both have small magazines, lightweight design, and the ability to compete with the submachine guns of the assault class. With the rate of fire standing at 600 rounds a minute, but only a small 20-round magazine, you'll be hard-pressed to take down more than 2 enemies before you have to reload. But it should be very easy for you to take down those 2 enemies. With a max damage of 23 up close, dropping to 19 at a longer range, and an 820 meters per second bullet velocity, those rounds you're firing are going to hit your target pretty soon after they've left the barrel. With such a high bullet velocity, the B.A.R is not a weapon that you need to be concerned about in regards to leading targets. Chances are your opponent is going to be within 50 to 75 meters or so, and there all you need to be concerned about is keeping your sights directly on the enemy. A few rounds later, they're going to come crashing to the ground. Of those 3 variants, the trench, the storm, and the telescopic, I'd recommend sticking with the first 2. The telescopic is there if you want to have an assault rifle-like experience, but with the added ability to be accurate at range. Standing still, the B.A.R telescopic's aiming down sight accuracy is just 0.16, so most of those bullets are going to be landing on target. But really, the strengths of this weapon lie in the mid-range. The trench variant has increased hipfire accuracy, and that can come in really handy if an enemy surprises you up close. The B.A.R is going to have no problem easily competing with the assault's SMGs, but it is still likely to lose out to those powerful shotguns. The storm variant comes with reduced recoil thanks to an added foregrip, and of the 3 variants that you can actually pick, this is the one that you're probably going to want to go for. You've got 20 fast-moving rounds and a nice, easy-to-manage recoil. Usually that equals enemies dying and you winning the gunfight. Just be aware of the reload time, however. It's nowhere near as severe as the MG15's massive box magazine, but you will end up hitting 3.2 seconds for a long reload with the B.A.R. And considering there's only 20 rounds in a magazine, you are going to be reloading a lot. But how have DICE designed this weapon in Battlefield 1 in comparison to its real-life counterpart? Is it historically accurate, or have they bent the rules again to try and offer players something they'll enjoy using in this game? Let's find out. The Browning automatic rifle is the work of legendary weapons designer John Browning. In 1917, he travelled to Washington, D.C. with 2 weapons that he'd prototyped. They became the M1917 Browning machine gun, which is a mounted water-cooled weapon that could be used in machine gun nests, and a shoulder-fired automatic rifle that at the time he called the Browning machine rifle. Both of these weapons chambered the American standard .30-06 Springfield round. They used the round in the 1903 bolt-action rifle as well. And in Washington, D.C., he arranged a public demonstration of the weapons. And upon seeing it fire, high-ranking military officials present immediately recommended the machine rifle, the B.A.R., to be put straight into production. Beyond this point, things got a little bit more complicated for the rifle. After some further small tests conducted later on in 1917, the order was given for 12,000 units of the B.A.R. to be made by Colt, who had exclusive rights to make the weapon at the time. However, Colt were already running at full capacity at their other factories, and they were unable to start production straight away. They attempted to obtain new facilities, but instead, the decision was made to direct that 12,000 unit order to Winchester, who was then designated as the main contractor. And at the same time, the order was then upped to 25,000 units. Winchester actually made a few small changes to the rifle before putting it into production, changing the weapon designs to allow spent bullet casings to expel out of the right side of the weapon body, rather than the original point, which was right on top of it. By the time the weapon finally started rolling off the production line, it was February 1918. The first 1,000 or so B.A.R.s didn't meet production specifications, and therefore didn't allow parts to be interchanged with other weapons. Production then didn't hit full swing again until June 1918, when the first 4,000 units were finally delivered, and then into July, 9,000 more were able to be produced every month. Later on in July, the first batch of units was sent across the Atlantic Ocean with American soldiers as part of the Expeditionary Force, and the first unit to take hold of them was the US Army's 79th Infantry Division, and its first recorded use was on the 13th of September 1918, so nearly 2 months later than when it arrived. Once more and more units started to arrive in Europe, the replacement process began for the Americans. They'd been using the French Chouchot machine gun as part of their walking fire strategy. Machine guns would either be shoulder or hip-fired, spraying bullets towards the enemy, suppressing them and keeping them in their trenches. Other infantry soldiers would then go over the top and force their way into enemy territory to try and capture ground. The B.A.R. had been designed with this practice in mind, and it also shipped across the Atlantic with special new ammo belts, which hold different pouches so the holder could put different magazines around their waist. There was also a solid cup added onto the belt so the stock of the rifle could be rested against the soldier's waist, whilst it was held over his shoulder with a sling. This would allow the soldier to walk forwards and fire at the same time, and it extended beyond the shoulder fire methods that the Americans had heavily used with French weaponry, and this became known as marching fire. Approximately 52,000 units arrived in Europe before the war ended in November 1918. Now, there are stories that a late arrival was actually a scheme concocted by the American general John J. Pershing to continue using Allied weaponry such as British rifles and French tanks would leave less time in the war for their impressive B.A.R. units to fall into enemy hands. Now, whether there's any truth to this, I'm not sure, but it is well documented that the American Expeditionary Force landed in Europe without any adequate equipment for the battles that they would face. Pershing ordered this move to save time, and simply getting more men on the ground at that point would help limit the Central Powers advancing across the Western Front. Despite not seeing any true combat till September 1918, the B.A.R. did end up having a big impact on the war, along with the soldiers who carried them. The Meuse-Argonne offensive, which ran all the way up until Armistice Day, saw large-scale use of the B.A.R. by the Americans and the French, who fought in that battle. And Paul von Hindenburg, German chief of staff at the time, said this: "Without the American troops, and despite a food blockade, the war could have ended in a sort of stalemate." So there you go then, the B.A.R. in Battlefield 1 very much sits in the same vein as it did during the battles in Europe. It was a lightweight, portable rifle designed primarily as a walking fire weapon, capable of suppressing enemies in trenches and killing others out in the open. Thank you very much for watching, I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know what you think of the B.A.R. down below in the comments, drop me a like, and also let me know what weapon you want me to feature next week on Battlefield 1 Weapon History. But until next time, my name is Westie, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.